Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar where we're looking at HotDocs and how we integrate with other line of business applications. Just by way of introduction, my name's Graham. I am Head of Global Services here at HotDocs, looking after our customers from a technical perspective, and I am joined on this webinar by Nigel Richards. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, Nigel Richards. I'm a Senior Product Manager here at HotDocs and been working, like Graham, on integrations and with customers for about the past 16 years.
Fantastic. So myself and Nigel will be taking you through this webinar this afternoon. And just as we start, we want this to be interactive. We want you to be able to get the most out of what we're discussing this afternoon. So now that we're underway, there is a question panel on your GoToMeeting window. If you have any questions at any point, just type them in there, and we have a Q&A at the end where we'll go through the questions and answer as many as we can. And then if we don't get to answer them all, we will then go off, answer them, and get back to you with an FAQ on this webinar. So any questions you have, just put them into the GoToWebinar window on the right-hand side. We'll also be recording this, so if there's anyone you want to share this with or you want a copy of it, we'll be publishing this up to the website once we have finished it. So we're recording this as well for you to review later. But just as we start, there's quite a lot of people who may know what HotDocs is and how it works, but we want to make sure that everybody's on a level playing field here. So what we want to do is just give you a very brief overview of our product, what we do, the basics, and then we'll jump into the integration part of looking at a few key integrations that we have done over the last year or so. But first of all, what is HotDocs? Well, we are a document automation technology. We allow users, non-technical business users, to take the documents that you produce on a regular basis in the format that they're in, typically Word or PDF, and give you the tools to transform them into HotDocs templates. And that's the process of finding all the changeable pieces of information and the business rules and inserting HotDocs instructions in their place to create an intelligent template. And that phase is the first phase of HotDocs, content creation. So we provide you the tools that integrate with Microsoft Word and PDF to create your templates. And then we move into phase two. Once you've created that template content, you then want to consume it in an end environment. And HotDocs produces a dynamic interview questionnaire, the questions you need to answer to produce the document you want to produce. And users can interact with that questionnaire in a browser or in a desktop application, or we can integrate it to pull data from other systems. So we collect all the information you need to produce the document, and then we push it into our intelligent assembly engine, and out pops a document or a suite of related documents in the format that you want them in. And we also save that data for later to be reused across multiple documents, so you can produce suites from our documents. You can also skip the interview process as well, just to batch process or assemble documents silently in the background if you have all the data in your systems that you need. So the second phase is content consumption. We can deliver that whether it's in the cloud, whether it's an on-premise server installation, or in a desktop application as well. So that's just a brief summary of what our technology does. But really what we're looking at today is why would you integrate with HotDocs? Well, there are lots of systems you already have in your organizations. That's anything from CRMs to document management to collaboration portals to e-signature. And HotDocs is very much a tool that collaborates and fits into your current processes and infrastructure and acts as a service so that whenever you need to generate a document, we can interact with those systems to produce it. And not only does that bring that kind of risk mitigation, that risk reduction, the compliance around creating documents only with HotDocs, but it actually allows you to utilize that along with the other systems that provide those in your process management and your document management as well. So it's all about reducing duplication in terms of data entry. If you have data in your CRM, you never want to enter it twice into HotDocs to then produce a document. We can pull that directly, and Nigel will show us an example of that later on. And really, it allows you to function seamlessly to accelerate growth in your business. So as HotDocs can be plugged in there, it can then streamline that document production process along with your other line of business integration. So we're going to look at a few of these things. These are just examples of, on the right hand side, examples of technologies we've integrated with, and we're going to pull out a few of those as we go through this webinar. And first of all, we're going to look at integrating with a business process management system. And for this one, I'm going to hand over to Nigel to walk you through this slide.
So many business processes involve the production of documentation, and many leading enterprises around the world use HotDocs as part of that business process. Now, HotDocs itself doesn't necessarily form the backbone of that business process. There are lots of tools like IBM Business Process Management, like K2, or sometimes these are inbuilt business process management applications. And one of the fantastic things about integrating with HotDocs is that HotDocs is a service-oriented architecture which allows business process management tools to be integrated with HotDocs. Now, what this means is that there's one point of integration with the HotDocs document assembly, and the business process management tool, in this case IBM BPM, collects the data from Oracle, integrates with SharePoint, integrates with the other line of business applications, and at any point along the way where a document is required, HotDocs is called, an interview is displayed, and the documents are produced. Now, of course, lending, bank lending, is one of the key areas where we've seen most growth. Many of the world's larger banks are now using HotDocs as perhaps in their commercial lending process. You have the application documents. HotDocs might be used for collecting data from the customer. That kicks off the business process. Internal documents for the analysis and sanctioning of that particular loan could be produced and are produced by HotDocs. You have the lending documents, whether that's the lending contract itself, the security documents, debentures, the letters to the customer, the drawdown. That can be produced and is produced by HotDocs. And further down, all through the process, through problem management, through just communications with the customer, again, via HotDocs. So many banks produce tens, hundreds of thousands of documents annually, saving hundreds, thousands of hours, days even every year, and mitigating the risk of poorly drafted contracts. Of course, you've got this thing, high volumes, a high degree of compliance and regulatory, and a high degree of bespokeness for each and every customer, expecting only their particular types of document. And I'll hand over now to Graham, who's going to talk about a specific example involving BPM.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nigel. What I'm going to do is, as we go through this webinar, we're going to do a slide on our integration, then jump into a quick demonstration of it. So here I'm just going to jump in and show you K2. We've talked about IBM BPM. But also, along with that, we have lots of other integrations with other products as well. And here I'm going to show you HotDocs and K2. K2 is a business process management system. We talked a little bit about a lending process within a bank there. But business processes can be anything from requesting software licenses keys within a software business to employee onboarding. And here we have an example of an employee onboarding process within K2. And what you're looking at here is a dashboard very similar to other dashboards from other BPM providers, where a user may want to go in and kick off a process or kick off a workflow to then produce documents at the end or have documentation produced as part of a process. So I'm going to select this employee onboarding startup here that will take me to a new form, and this form is being set out, if you're a HotDocs user, very much like a HotDocs interview, to capture the information needed to kick off the employee onboarding process. So as I go through, I can just fill out all the forms like any other system here. This may interact like a HotDocs interview. It's dynamic to capture the information, date pickers and such like, but really when we interact with BPM systems, it is really up to you whether you use the interview to capture the information or you can use the BPM system to capture that information as well. So I'm going to go through and type in the information here in order to produce the next part of the process. So we've got a drop down here for the city, and type in as Edinburgh, and here select the country, go to the UK. These forms can be attached to things like Active Directory, so I'm just going to type in an employee number here. But the manager here, I'm going to type in Russell, It's hooked up to Active Directory, so we're doing lookups to make sure we can capture the information from other line of business systems. As Nigel said, BPMs usually are the glue that binds the process together, interacting with lots of different systems. So they make a perfect conduit for capturing the information to then pass to HotDocs. So here, a position type is going to be permanent, the start date will be next week, and the role is going to be a project manager. And now that I've collected all the information to onboard this employee, I'm going to click submit on this BPM form. And now it's been submitted into the system. It will then get progressed onto the next stage. So I'm the manager, I've submitted that form saying I'm onboarding a new employee, and I can come in here and I can see where the status is of my current state of onboarding my employee. So I've got at the provisioning stage here, this was Graham Penman, and you can see the start date here, and I can go in and see whereabout in the process I currently am by this dashboard. So the process I'm currently in is in provisioning, I'm currently active, but you'll also see that there's a Documents tab. And this is all the documents you can upload and be produced to get pushed in during the process. And you'll notice that there are no documents in there right now. And I'll show you why. Because at this point in the process, there is no documentation being produced. It needs to be triggered by the next step in the process because HR need to produce the contracts. So if you imagine I'm now HR, I've logged into my portal, here's all my work lists on the right hand side. I'm going to click refresh on my work list and you'll see that I now have a task to complete for human resources. And that task, I can open the form, and that task now shows me some additional information I need to capture in order to progress the employee onboarding. Here I have the induction scheduled. I'm going to say it's been scheduled for this new employee. I'm going to say that the welcome pack has been sent, and I could pick an induction date and time. But really it's just reviewing the information to make sure that it's all correct. You can see the information I typed in before in the process. And all that data is the data that's going to be eventually put into my document. So I'm going to mark this stage of the process by HR as complete and hit submit. So in the background, HR have authorized that, they've completed this step in the process. And what's happening is K2 is taking all the data we've collected during the process, it's grabbing data from other systems and solutions, it's pulling it together and then passing it on to HotDocs. And HotDocs will then take that data, it will then take the templates it needs to that are required by this process and assemble them silently in the background and then push them back to K2, which may then push them into another document management system as well. So K2 is controlling that process as we go through. So if I go back to my Documents tab and hit refresh, you'll see that actually now automatically we have two documents that have been produced. We have the employment contract and we have the cover letter for new employees. So from one click in a process, from one control process in your BPM, we have created a document by collecting all the information from lots of different systems or the BPM process, and it is finally being pushed into a HotDocs template to produce a document as well. So that's just a short example of how we can integrate with a business process management tool with HotDocs sitting in the background as a service generating the documentation. So I'm going to flip back to this PowerPoint and we'll move on to the next integration. So as we mentioned, that was business process management, but what about CRM systems where you hold most of your customer data? Things like Microsoft Dynamics CRM. These are one of the most common systems that we implement and integrate with because your CRM system contains all the relevant data that needs to be pushed into your documentation. And there are many ways in which you may want to use that customer information across different jurisdictions to drive the documentation and the documentation output, because a contract for selling in the UK may be different to the one selling in the US or France or Germany. So what we can do is we can collect that information and pre-populate it into an interview, and then you can select which jurisdiction you want that documentation produced in, collect all other information that may not be contained within the CRM. We can even barcode the documents that are produced to then go back into your document storage. So there's a whole lot of different things that we can do with the CRM system. So we take it from capturing information within the CRM to selecting additional information in an interview to then potentially barcoding that document and then producing the final document draft that may then go into your DMS, which is SharePoint. And this is a real-world example of a bank in Europe that we have integrated with to do this, taking the end user within the bank from their CRM system through creating the document and then putting it into their DMS at a later point in their process. And to demonstrate this, we've actually got an integration with Salesforce, and I'm going to just switch control over to Nigel, who will then just demonstrate this for you. So Nigel, I'll make you presenter.
Right, thank you, Graham. So as Graham mentioned, here's a very simple example. Salesforce, one of the most popular CRMs on the planet. So let's imagine we're logged in, and like many companies, you want to create an agreement with one of your existing customers. I'm going to select here for my list of accounts the XYZ fictitious corporation. Salesforce allows us to create buttons within the various user interfaces, and I've created a link here, generate agreement, which, as I show you in a moment, will connect to HotDocs. In this case, it's going to be cloud services through a little middle piece of integration. I click the button, a little pop-up window occurs, and HotDocs is contacted. And here we have the HotDocs interview. Notice that by clicking the button within the account details, the account details have been passed through to HotDocs and into the HotDocs interview. So I can check those, and I can navigate the rest of the interview, fill in the remaining questions. Not all the questions need to be answered directly by the CRM. Fill in the remainder. Technical services, start date today, and I'll say that we finish at the end of the month, and I click finish there. HotDocs has now assembled a document, a mixture of data that I've entered into the interview and data passed from the CRM. The document has been posted back into Salesforce. I can click close here, and if I just refresh this screen, we can see there's a new agreement here. I click on that link, and when Salesforce wakes up, this is my new document. I can view the document by clicking that button there, and it's running the security scan. I open it. There's the Word document. So in a few seconds, here I have rather a 4-page document. I don't know how many hundreds of words in it. All the customer details are passed through. Only the relevant clauses have been passed through to me, passed through to this document. It's been saved back into Salesforce. And of course, we've saved many minutes, perhaps an hour or two of time, and there's no errors in this document whatsoever. So very brief, what we've seen there is a integration with Salesforce, pulling the data through into HotDocs, augmenting the data, filling the extra information in the interview, producing the document, and the integration, pushing the document back into Salesforce. So I hope that illustrates the power of HotDocs and integration. Back to you, Graham.
Thanks, Nigel. So if you make me presenter, I'll then share my screen to go through the rest of this presentation.
Okay.
Great. So now that we've looked a little bit at BPM systems, we've looked a little bit at the CRM systems. There's also another key system that we integrate with a lot, which is document management. And one of the most popular document management systems, especially in the legal world, is iManage. And obviously when you create documents within HotDocs, there's always a step in the process where you want to profile that document into your document repository. And if you've used iManage or another related document management system, what you can see on the screen in terms of its properties is very familiar to you. Because when you profile a document anywhere, it has metadata about it to help you find it, to help you version it, to help you know things about that document. So recently we did a renewed integration with one of our customers using iManage 9.3 to allow them to be able to capture data within the interview and use the data captured to create the document profile. So you have things in the document profile when you save it, things like the author, the operator, things like the type of document. Is it a letter? Is it a legal agreement? Is it a contract? And that metadata can often be inferred by the selection of data and data you enter into the interview. So we capture all this information within the interview, and we allow you to extrapolate that data out and pull it into the assembly process to then use to populate the fields within the document, but also populate the profile fields and then silently profile documents back into the document management system. And that alleviates that risk that you may find people creating documents without saving them directly into the document management system afterwards, because you can silently profile them automatically in the background, then redirect the users to that document within your document management system. So it's a very powerful way to make sure that there's not any documents lying around that have never been saved to your DMS. So you can guarantee that they're all in there. And what I'd like to do is just demonstrate this in a very short space of time. So I'm going to come out of this PowerPoint and I'm going to open up my browser. And you'll see that on my browser we have something called the HotDocs Hub. Now, this may be familiar to some of you may not have seen this before, but this is a front end that connects into the HotDocs Hub, and Nigel's going to talk about the HotDocs Hub in a few minutes' time. But effectively, this application provides an end-to-end of document assembly, but it also allows us to extend it to integrate with other line of business systems. So you'll notice that we have a bunch of documents here we've created before, and what I want to do is I want to create a new document. So I can click this create work item. A work item is just a collection of templates and data that produce multiple documents, and you can see I'm presented with the ability to select a template. So I'm going to click on this DMS demo folder, and actually what's happening in the background is we have a centralized template repository that has a full API on it. And this offers version control, rollback functionality, and forward publishing on your template content in a production environment. And it offers access permissions as well. So as it's gone off there, it said, what templates does Graham have access to? And it pulls back a list. So I've got a standard customer contract here. I'm going to click create. I'll give it a document name. I'm going to call this profile contract and give it a reference of 123. Again, that could be your client matter reference within your document management system, and I'm going to say go to interview. Now in the background here, this is standard HotDocs, where you see that HotDocs has gone off to the server, said go and get me all the questions this user needs to answer to produce this document. And now you can actually see we have a profile screen within the HotDocs interview itself. So here we have the workspace within iManage that I want to be able to profile the document to pre-populated with the profile information. You could put a button in here to link up to query that from iManage so you don't have to enter the information. We've got a folder, the operator here. I'm just going to put the client in as HotDocs and the matter number here is 002 because I know the client matter number that I want to put in there. And if I pull up desk site here, you will see that this is my iManage environment with workspaces, and there's my legal practice workspace that we have populated into the interview and the folders underneath it as well. And because we have the required functionality within the HotDocs interview, that means that you can guarantee that when the users enter the profile information, it can get pulled out and it is there in order to profile the documents into the correct place. So as I tab off that, my next dialog appears. Now for those of you who never have seen an interview before, I'm just going to point out a few details about the interview. The interview is that dynamic way of capturing all the information to produce a document. But here we have a whole bunch of questions I need to answer to produce the document. When I click off this field, it goes back to black because it's no longer required. We have resources to help users answer the question correctly. And as we answer questions, the next dialogues open up for the user to be guided through to answer all the relevant information. And it's very dynamic. As I answer questions, questions appear and disappear depending on how we've answered those questions before. So it's a very dynamic way of capturing all that information. Now, I'll maybe talk a little bit about the interview a bit later on, but to avoid boredom, I'm going to click this Fill Demo Answers button, and now all that information is populated. Again, you could save your data at any point and come back to later, view a document preview, but I'm just going to click Finish. And instantly, HotDocs takes all that information and it assembles all the relevant documentation, and then it appears in a list for us to view. So I could download that document if I want, but here we have a silent profiling into iManage. And if I click the profile button just now, you can see very quickly the document has been successfully profiled into iManage by mapping the fields into the document profile. And if I now refresh this folder within Files Desk Site, you will see that that is now my profile contract that I just did a few minutes ago. I can now open it up and check it out directly from the document management system, and it has all the data in all the right places with all the right styling and formatting, cross-references, table of contents, all updated within there. So that's a very brief example about how we can integrate. That could be iManage, it could be SharePoint, could be FileNet, it could be a host of other document management systems as well. So there's one last integration that I'd like to share with you before we get on to our kind of final slide in Q&A, and that is with digital signatures. Now, digital signatures are a way to be able to stop printing out documents, send them off, have them certified and signed by individuals who, from say an iPad, an iPhone, any tablet device, that allow you to quickly and securely sign a document. And we've done numerous projects over the last little while with large organizations to be able to enable that functionality from within HotDocs. So here we have a template, and the template has all the information in it, and the anchor tags within what I'm going to show you is DocuSign as to where you need to sign that document. And the process was started off in this firm by data coming from another CRM system to pre-populate some of the contract information. And then the user is shown the interview just like normal, and you answer all the questions within the interview process, and then we produce the documents. This is standard HotDocs. This is what we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes. But then afterwards, it goes into a little bit of a process within DocuSign. So we produce that document, we mark it as ready to be signed, and then we send it out to DocuSign. And we map those fields from within the HotDocs template to the signature blocks within DocuSign. So you can manage multiple signatures within that document very easily and produce them dynamically within HotDocs and have all those signature fields ready to be sent out and signed. And then after that, the user receives it on their tablet or on their PC. They can then go in and sign it, and then it's securely stored within DocuSign as a certified signed document. So how does that actually work in practice? Well, as I pull up my browser again, I'm going to switch to this other environment here. And this is very similar to the environment you saw before where we had the iManage integration. So we have our home page, we have the ability to create a new document. I'm going to click on the Create Document this time, click on Contracts, and click Create. I'm going to put a signature signing contract as my document name. I'm going to give it a reference. Again, that could be whatever you like, and go to the interview. Now again, this is a very similar process. It's just about where the document goes once it has been generated. But the important thing to note, and as I click Fill Demo Answers button, is that here in the customer contact details, I'm just going to change these to myself. Because what's going to happen is once I click Finish, HotDocs is going to see that this has a signature block, and I want this name and address to be mapped to the person who needs to sign it, so we get automatic emails sent out. So I'm going to click Finish now. On this, we now get the assembled document here, and you can see that now that it's approved, we can send it to DocuSign. So when I click Send to DocuSign, HotDocs takes that document, bundles it up into the envelope it needs from DocuSign, the e-signature tool. I'm going to send it out to DocuSign to then do the signing process. So if I now look in my email, I've received an email now from DocuSign to get a signature on it, and I'll drag this across to the other side of the screen, and it says review the document. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to review the document, and we get redirected into the DocuSign signing portal. So you can see that this is the same document that we just produced earlier and profiled into iManage, but as I click Continue, we now have the signature block in there. So I'm going to click Sign, and now my signature has been put in there. If we haven't been in before, you can add the signature in as you go. I'm going to then click Finish, and that document has now been saved into the secure location within DocuSign, ready as a certified signed document within there just now. So those have been 4 integrations that we have done, but Nigel's just going to describe briefly how these can be achieved.
Thank you. So as we've seen lots of document assembly today. We have a document assembly service We also have, in conjunction with the document assembly service, a template management and a user and permission service. Of course, if you want to assemble a document through an integration, it would help if we had somewhere to store templates. And Graham mentioned that earlier on, showed you a little user interface where we were selecting templates from a group of folders. Now, there's a user interface in front of the service, and you can use those out the box if you like, but importantly for integrations you need an API. So every one of these services, and it is a true services oriented architecture, there is an API that uses OAuth 2 for authentication and authorization, the latest technology. Now the orange boxes that we have shown there above the user interface is what we have immediately and today. Significant we're a long way through the development of a data management. That's the service for managing answer data, what we call work items, like matters and cases. Then we have a new service being developed for putting those documents, so storing those documents for a little while before they get sent downstream. Again, every one of these services with an API. There's also data connectivity. Now we already have data connectivity through APIs, but this new service is all about providing off-the-shelf configurable endpoints for things like Salesforce, SQL Server, so there's less software development involved. And of course reporting. Every action, every API call, more and more our customers saying we need these reporting functionality, again with an API. You can use our standard user interface, but importantly, because every one of these services has its own API, you can build your own corporate white-labeled user interfaces on top of our own APIs. And this is the way we're going. So, back to Graham.
So just in terms of, we've shown a lot of the integration capabilities today, just at a high level. But what I want to do is, what about bespoke integration, where you may have a customized solution, or you may want to extend the integrations we have? Well, we provide a full suite of services from our global services team, who do things like business assessments. So if you want to find out more, we're happy to come on site with you and do a business assessment with you to work out where the data points, where the integration points are, and that would lead into some requirements analysis and capture. So a full suite of professional services to help you understand what the business needs might be and how we can help you with them. And all these things we have backed up by people who have a large amount of experience in application development, integration development, design and deployment and handover of bespoke implementations and integrations with some of these products and some other products that you may have internally. So if you have any questions on that, we are more than happy to get in touch with you and provide some of these strategic services or product services to you as well. So, Nigel, just in summary, can you take us through that?
Just to cover what we've seen today. So we have seen and discussed an integration with business process management, the demonstration with K2, but there are lots of other BPM tools that we can integrate with. We've seen an integration with a customer relationship management platform, in this case Salesforce, but of course Dynamics CRM works as well. Document management, iManage, and last of all, the electronic signature. Now, these are only 4. Our API is very flexible. We can integrate with just about anything. And now it's time to hand back to Graham for any questions. Thank you.
Yes, so there have been some questions come through, and I will try and rattle through them. We tried to keep this to half an hour. I realize we've run a little bit over, but let's go through some of these questions. So first question is, where can we find documentation related to integrations with HotDocs document services? So I'll maybe take that one, Nigel, in terms of documentation for that. So, and it relates to another question, which is the HotDocs Hub the same thing as HotDocs document services? That's a really good question. So document services is a shrink-wrapped, off-the-shelf product that sits on top of cloud services, which is our cloud automation engine, and that doesn't have any extendable features. But the HotDocs Hub is what's going to be backing all our applications going forward. So the HotDocs Hub is the infrastructure that will eventually sit on the back of all HotDocs applications, and there will be additional applications like DS that sit on top of that hub infrastructure for integrated purposes. And if you'd like more information on that, send us an email on the email address that's up on the screen just now, and we can help answer those more in detail. The next question, in our HotDocs setup we are able to also save our answer files to iManage. Is this the same process that you are describing? Nigel, do you want to take saving answer files into document management?
Yeah, so Some of our customers do save their answer files into iManage. In fact, there's a desktop integration that you can do this already. And of course, like I said, answer files can also be saved into the document management system as well.
Absolutely. One of our largest law firms in the UK actually have their answer files stored in iManage in a server environment, and they pass us the answer file ID from the iManage environment, and we pull them out. So they can, yes, be saved into iManage as well. So next question, how do you push from DocuSign into the DMS? Okay, so there's actually, in terms of the integration process, there is the ability for HotDocs to generate documents, and then we can push them somewhere, almost like a handoff into other systems. So once we hand off the document into DocuSign, it's then within the DocuSign realm. Now, the integrations we've done with DocuSign allow us to set up settings at our application that then tell DocuSign to push it after it has been saved and signed into an internal resource, and you can do that either via email, notification from DocuSign, or there's a direct API as well. But that's more on the DocuSign configuration end from where HotDocs pushes it into. Nigel, does HotDocs integrate with SharePoint?
So HotDocs has been and is integrated with SharePoint. So there is a web part for SharePoint, and the HotDocs Hub has APIs, SharePoint has APIs, and the principles we've demonstrated today apply equally to SharePoint.
Absolutely. We're working on a few projects at the moment and a few solutions that involve linking out of SharePoint into HotDocs and then pushing back into SharePoint once we are finished. So here we go. Has the Hub been released to market?
Yes, it has. It's released, it's supported. We have a cloud version, we have on-premise versions. One of the core things about the Hub is that for every service we release on-premise, there's an equivalent and pretty much identical service in the cloud. So it means you can choose on-premise today, and perhaps in the future when you want to switch, you can be rest assured that that will also work in the cloud as well. So I have to say that the Hub at the moment consists of only the 3 services which I've discussed earlier, but there are more services coming along over the next 3, 6, 12 and 18 months.
All right, fantastic. So does all these integrations require the use of cloud services? What about desktop integrations? So I think from our point of view, we have APIs on all of our product sets that allow us to do lots of different integrations specific to your circumstances. So if you want to do a cloud one, we can do the cloud. If you want to do on-premise, you can do on-premise. If you want to do desktop, we can do desktop. We have the ability to do all of these. The specific ones we've been looking at today are a combination of on-premise and cloud, but we have the ability to do multiple integrations as well across all our product sets. So there's another question. Oh, sorry, Nigel, were you going to go into that?
I was going to ask about the 3 supported services to continue the answer the question. The 3 services we have now are the user management and permissions, the assembly service, and the template management service.
And over the next little while, those other services that came up will be being released along with the other Hub components as well.
So whoever was asking about an equivalent of document services with APIs and integration capability, you shouldn't have too long to wait.
Absolutely. So I think that's about as much time as we have to answer questions just now. Sorry if we didn't get to your question. We will pull these down. We'll answer them specifically and get back to you with the answers to them just now. But we really want to thank you for joining us today. Realize we have run a little bit over the half an hour we're going to spend on this, but hopefully this has been very beneficial for you to see how HotDocs can integrate with different line of business systems. Any questions you may have, please get in touch with marketing@hotdocs.co.uk, and we'd be more than happy to help you out and with this further. So Nigel, thanks for joining me today. Thanks to everyone for being on this call, and hopefully we will speak to you all very soon. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.